Hello and welcome to Rare Cuts Media Society, the podcast that looks at hidden media gems where an old man's pants get set on fire. With your host, as always, I'm Andrew Jagoda, and with me we've got Eric Hathorn. How are you today, Eric?
I'm doing all right. But I'm now looking over my shoulder for a lady in white, and I knew that was gonna rhyme when I said it, but I didn't plan on that.
All right. Well, thank you, Dr. Seuss. And Mike Ross, how are you today?
I'm good. I just want to make sure any of the younger listeners, particularly ones in high school that are listening, take the time to look into getting your Jostens class ring, because you don't know when it might solve a mystery
or incrimination.
Or yeah.
There. Rob Leitchick, how are you today, Rob?
I'm excited to talk about this creepy white lady. That's all I got to say.
You're not wrong.
Oh, well, with that, I guess I'll just dive right in. So, we are doing our arc of holiday movies. So, to kick us off, I have October. And to kick off this holiday season, I thought I'd enter us into an eerie ghost story with the 1988 film Lady in White. In 1962, a young Frankie Scarlatti has visions of a ghost girl being murdered, and she asks him for help to find her mommy. Directed, produced, and written by Frank LaLoggia, Lady in White was his version of a pseudo-biographical film. Born in Rochester, New York, and hearing local legends of a Lady in White ghost story, LaLoggia took much of the movie from his own childhood and even filmed much of it in and around Rochester. And as well, many of the characters were based on his own family members. So I wanted to kick us off with watching this movie. Could you guys tell that it was such a personal story, or did it just seem like kind of a generic young horror movie?
I would say that I started to pick up on the vibe that maybe this was something personal from the beginning, because main character's name is Frankie, and written and directed by Frank. And I was like, that's probably not a coincidence. I am curious to hear more about, what if there were any aspects of, did he have any sort of supernatural type experiences as a child? But definitely, like, the whole family aspect, that felt real. Like that felt like something he grew up in, and he knew that type of family very well. And just the amount of the love between the family members, it was there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Except between Mama and Papa.
No, see, that's love, man. That's love.
That's generic and also real Italian love.
Right, fair enough,
I mean, she was trying to save his life so that he didn't die of emphysema or something like that. You know what I mean?
She's setting his pants on fire.
Or setting his pants on fire. He's just trying to smoke, and she's trying to stop him, you know?
Yeah.
But no, you kind of got the sense that, like, so it was like this weird amount of generic and specific that you had. Like, you had like the town, which seems kind of like, we got this generic suburban small town outside the city kind of thing going on that like most people could relate to. But then it was like a very specific, like, we are an Italian family who lives in this small town. And like very much about like that growing up in that multi-generational household. And that kind of stuff was like very specific. And then, so there were like things that were very specific like that would pop up in the story that would make you be like, is this based off something? Is this a little bit more? But then it had that like genericness in that maybe a lot of people could relate to it, but I don't think they like gelled together perfectly. There was like both, but like together, but like not in a cohesive. I'm doing hand gestures because I don't know how else to describe it. If you get the vibe I'm going for, I didn't think there was anything wrong with that either. Like, but yeah, you could see that like personal and universal kind of at odds with each other at times.
Yeah.
I would definitely agree with the specifics. I think the like intro part definitely felt like things that very personally happened to him or his family during like his childhood, like his grandfather getting the cigarette in his pants. I guarantee you there's a pants on fire story. I guarantee you there's a story of him driving a bike through some kids going to school with a nun, and then the nun giving them like a really dirty look. And then the bike into the wet cement. It seemed like way too specific to happen at the very beginning of the film, like very specific things to be too just generic. Definitely had to be some sort of like something happened in his life. Certainly had
Those
to.
were all good cartoon gags too. Like all those things that you described were very cartoony gags.
Yeah. The cement specifically, Three Stooges, that's the vibe I got from those. More importantly, what I found interesting about that particular scene where he actually lands in the cement, the bike's covered in cement, and the older brother, Gino, is just like, hey, don't tell Dad. It's like, I think he's going to know.
Well, like,
I thought that was
I had a beef with that part of the story. Like, all right, first off, your bike is basically garbage because it's never going to, like, the wheels will never spin again.
Yeah.
His clothes, he's not going to class covered in cement. Like, that was like, okay, once I got past that, like I got into the film,
he
I was
did
good,
though.
But like
He did.
That part of it was like ridiculous. Yeah, I mean, I was like, no, your day is done, friend. You're going home and spending the next like 5 or 6 hours getting all of this cement off of you and trying to figure out how to salvage this bike. You're not going to school.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you got to figure he was on his way to school. How early did he leave that he could get as much as he did off before he got to school?
Mm-hmm.
It was crazy to me too.
Movie magic.
Yeah.
But no, if we go,
yeah, it was just like, hey, I got this funny gag I want to do, but we need him to get to school still, so let's just move on. Movie magic.
I think it's the over exaggeration in film. I'm still convinced, and maybe we only could know if we ever ask the director. But like, I think it probably exaggerated it in the film, but something tells me these things happened to him in some minor way as a child.
Like
for sure.
Yeah, like rode into the cement with his bike accidentally, and then
got like was able to pull it out.
Yeah, and it was like just on the tires. Yeah, maybe.
Yeah. I mean, to speak to the personal side of things, the crew actually, when they were filming that opening frame narrative, the crew actually demanded that instead of using the actor they'd hired, that actually Frank LaLoggia played the adult Frankie in that opening, because they said this is so much you should just play him. So that actually is Frank LaLoggia in the opening.
Gotcha.
And I listened to his commentary on the DVD, and the grandparents, like you were saying, that was straight up his grandparents. And so much so that when they did the premiere, his family came to the premiere, and his aunts were all in tears because they saw their parents alive again on the screen.
That's cool.
Yeah. I'm glad you brought up that first scene though, because I wanted to go back to that because I remembered it when you get to the I'm not spoiling anything about the end for anyone yet, but they start the movie with that and then they don't go back to it. So like you start with this like frame, and I mean that part was like, I like after the fact I was like, wait, what happened about him going home? Was there any more to that? Because he like was coming back to the small town to like revisit after becoming this successful writer. It's all in the first couple minutes of the film, so I'm not spoiling anything. And so like that sets things up for like when he reads a short story to his class, it's like, oh yeah, because he's the writer, because we saw him all grown up, and you know we know he's, you know, living into the future because of that, but then they never give us anything to follow up with that. which
Yeah,
I wish they would have.
it honestly, it was just very weird they even had a frame narrative for it, because I mean, to me, this movie felt a lot like, well, because my wife makes me watch it every year. It feels a lot like a hocus pocus kind of movie, like that kind of
Yeah.
vibe of the Halloween. Um, and I mean, they use it to set up the character Bing's, his history. So
Hmm.
there's really no reason to return to that, except for the ghost at the end, his sister. But with this, it's like, why do you have it if you're not gonna show them again?
Yeah, my only defense for the frame setup, the open-ended frame, um, my daughter actually watched it with me because we have like set screen time when they can start on the weekends, and I was up early and I was like, I'm just gonna watch this while no one's awake. And then she, like, of course, wandered down 5 minutes in. She's like, "What's this?" And um, she ended up liking it pretty well, actually. Um, and I think specifically that opening scene helped her like it because she knows that Frankie's going to be okay.
Hmm.
Which I think that is something that is geared more, because this was what, PG-13. Um, I think something like that is more geared towards younger children, because it helps them, doesn't make them so fearful. It won't be like a full-on horror movie where you're like, oh, the character could actually die in this scenario. We know now that Frankie's going to be okay.
Hmm.
Personally, I'm with you guys. Like, have that payoff, wrap that narrative up, have him at the cemetery. Maybe he has a vision of the little girl again with like her mother, or maybe he doesn't because that was resolved, and maybe he just is there and going to visit his grandpa or his dad's gravestone now, and just some sort of payoff, some sort of closure. But for kids, I think it works well in the way that they did it.
Originally, I had this whole idea about the frame narrative later in the questions, but we might as well finish it out.
Yeah,
Rob, what
let's
did
do it.
you think of the frame?
Uh, I I agree. I think it needed a payoff, and it didn't have one.
No.
Like I was kind of hoping for the end, like to come back to that, and he was like singing, and I had to look for the name of the song, just to be singing. Did you ever see a dream walking? Like to close out the film, it would have been a good like loop back, but something from the film as well to kind of bring
Yeah.
it all together. But
I
whatever.
don't think Frankie's ever going to sing that song or
Mm.
listen to it ever again.
Well, but
if I were,
but like in the end though, like everything worked out.
Yeah.
So I mean,
It could have been as simple as have that song play, and now we are back present day. You can just do an aerial shot pulling out of Frankie, just maybe laying some flowers down even at the little girl's gravesite, and then fade to credits. Could have been something really simple like that, or you even have the rolling credits over the zoom out. So you get the closure of like, oh, well, now we know why he's here. We understand his connection to this site and this girl. So it could have been simple, but again, maybe it was budgetary, or who knows.
Maybe.
I like that though. I would like that ending. Just a couple of seconds. That's all it needed.
Yeah.
Well, since Mike brought it up, I'll go on to the next part here.
Definitely.
But so yeah, due to the very personal nature of the film and his desire to keep total control, LaLoggia had a lot of trouble getting financing and couldn't get a single studio to support it. So instead, his cousin helped him open up a penny stock to raise funds for the film. But even that wasn't a guarantee, so they started filming with only about $250,000 out of what ended up taking over $4 million to film. So, with that in mind, did it seem like corners were cut in the movie, besides maybe having that ending shot? And could you tell that they were on such a tight budget?
I mean, for the late '80s, it felt comparable to a lot of other movies in this sort of genre. In terms of special effects, that is where they were struggling. Like you could tell, oh, they shot this on a blue screen. You can see the aliasing of the blue not being fully cut out along some of the characters, and so it's like, yeah, if you want good special effects, you have to pay, and it's a lot of money. So I think for me, that's the only hindrance there was the special effects. And again, Imogen watched it with me, and her kind of final opinion on it was that she would give the movie 4.5 stars out of 5. And she had said that it was only, she would have given it a 5, but some of the parts looked too fake. And so it's like, if she's noticing that, plus, she's a child of this era. So she's used to more modern, well done special effects. And this is the 80s. So, but
can we add her score to my
enjoyment bonus score?
She can't. That's not in the rules. No. I'm with you with the blue screen thing. So like I looked it up because like talking about like late 80s special effects, like this movie felt like it was older whenever the special effects came in. And I had to keep looking back, like it's 88. Okay, 88. Because like The Fly, which we also like the special effects in The Fly, which came out 2 years before this, and we watched I don't know how many episodes ago. I definitely surpassed this, and they're using green screen and they're doing some things, but they're like the like finesse that they're doing it with in the 80s was kind of surpassing this. It was kind of I kind of got the vibe of like if you're making a movie and it's kind of like they wanted to do these scenes, they had these like amazing ideas for like flying scenes and all sorts of stuff like that, but they just threw the green screen at anything, or the blue screen. It was definitely a blue screen for the time, and you could see it. But they would just throw that at everything. Where then I think of something like an Evil Dead, and it's like when you have a movie like that, and they knew that they had a low budget, they came up with more clever ways to mount a camera and to get different kinds of shots that would kind of hide the it's kind of like that, like what did they say, like necessity is the mother of invention kind of thing. Like if you like just think outside the box to try to make this happen, you're going to come up with something brilliant. And instead here, I think they were just like, well, blue screen. What are we going to do about this? Well, blue screen. What are we going to do about this one? Well, we got that blue screen we could use. And they just kept going back. Like I would like to see some other kinds of, ideas that they could do with it.
Well, and again, I'll defend it just because you cited The Fly, which was 2 years earlier. The Fly is estimated between $9 to $15 million budget. This is a fraction of that. And I mean, even thinking about like Alfred Hitchcock's Psycho, that was a $1 million black and white film. So what they were able to do on such a small budget is actually quite impressive.
I'll give you that. But then Evil Dead was a lot less.
Less than 250?
Well, so wait though, because they started with, if I don't have this, they started with 250 and they wound up spending 4.7 million.
Oh, I thought that's what they brought in.
Yeah,
they
started
the over budget.
Every day he met with the people and was like, how much did you get? Oh, we only got 15,000 today. Oh, we only got 10,000.
Okay.
So they like were biting their nails the whole time, wondering if they were going to have enough money to keep going.
Okay, I misunderstood what you had said there. I was thinking that it was 250 for the budget, and they made like $4.5 million on box office.
And also, I will say this was the first and only time a film was made that way for financing
with penny stocks.
Yeah.
Does anyone know enough about penny stocks to give us a? The only thing I know about it is the Wolf of Wall Street. He like gets like blacklisted or whatever, and then goes and sells penny stocks.
I read something. It was like 10 cents a share or something.
Okay. Yeah, it's under a certain threshold, right?
Yeah,
for it to be a penny stock.
So I mean, to get 15,000 in the days to them was like, oh no, only that. But thinking about it like that, I'm like,
that's a lot of shares.
I'll maybe flip the coin a little bit about the budget and the feel. So I agree with you on the blue screen, the special effects. I will even say where that thicket or whatever you want to call it, where they were running through in between like the town and the house. They call it the thicket. I don't know, whatever you want to call it. That was kind of with like the smoke. It would look real fake. But I will say the one thing that I did appreciate it was like the house and the decor and like everything else around it seemed like pretty legit. Like the town, it totally had that like late 50s, early 60s vibe. All of the different like the one lady was like scooping all of the candy corn, which first I thought was very impractical because nobody's going to get that candy corn ever again.
I wrote that down. I wrote it down.
No,
I wrote that down. She was scooping a candy corn from a basket into a basket of candy corn.
In the window, though. I was going to say that was $15,000 worth of penny stocks worth of candy corn.
Yes, exactly. But like, I think like some of those pieces of it, like if you told me there was like a limited budget, they didn't definitely skimp there because all like the different details that they added in. I will give them props for kind of really setting the stage well of like the era that it was set in. You totally had the feeling of late 50s, early 60s. The special effects and some of the other stuff, like again in the thicket area. But the other side of it, the period piece stuff, I thought they did quite well.
The forest specifically that you're referencing, it looked like it was something left over from a prop from Princess Brides from the forest, and they were like, we need to reuse this because this is our only option for our budget.
Right. That would be awesome if it was. But no, I will even say sometimes the green screen scenario and some of like the film, like the ghost effects were effective. I'll even argue that sometimes they were effective, but I think then it got to be too much of it, or they like would push it too far to try to make something happen just because they scripted it that way.
The coat room, that was pretty good. It was well done with the ghost girl and then like the invisible force thrashing her around. Like there's no blue screen detectable. Just that looked like old fashioned camera work and it worked well.
Yeah, it was very effective.
Yeah, it was for the ghosts. They would film like the room, and then they would film the person, the girl or whoever in it, but then in front of a black screen, and then remove the black screen, give it kind of a ghostly effect. So it was just straight up like camera tricks, which I think I do agree. I think that works a lot better than say the flying through the air toward the sun.
That was weird.
I felt that should have been done differently because that
was trippy.
Yeah, it was pretty trippy for an 88 movie. I was like,
specifically that I want to kind of go back to this. Like if they would have had, so there's some blue screen stuff with like the ending, like ghosts kind of stuff, but specifically that flying to the sun, that's where I wish they would have been like, what else can we do to represent this kind of like, it's kind of like that cliche of like, you know, going into the light as someone is dying kind of idea. But like in this case, they really went hard on, we're going to fly to the sun, but like what else could you do? And I think it could have been more effective in just like to not have the special effects detract.
Well, I think that goes back to the first topic we talked about, or one of the first ones, about like how personal a story. That totally had the fit of like, this was a dream he had, or maybe it's a dream he continues to have. Right. It was like too specific and really didn't fit into the rest of the film. So it made me think like, all right, this is something that happened to him personally.
In some way, yeah.
In some way.
Let's see that.
It was just way too specific otherwise.
For sure.
I had kind of an idea, and this kind of came to me when I was listening to the commentary, because the old 60s TV set that Angelo was watching was actually from Frank LaLoggia's childhood home. His mom still had it in the basement and it still worked. So I thought, well, what if instead of him flying through the air and imagining these scenes, what if he just pictured himself sitting down in front of the TV and seeing each of his relatives and their reactions like that?
See, I like that better already.
Also, that would have been cheaper probably for their budget.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it would have been effective.
Yeah.
No, because honestly, I think and I don't know how much of this was real or like based on something real, but like the basic plot of the movie, like the whole thing where there's been these murders over the past 10 years. And it's like, there's like a kid every year who like goes, you know, missing, dead kind of thing. And there's that news article. And then he like stumbles upon that incident with the ghost in the cloakroom that's connected to the myth of the lady in white. Like it all pulls together. Like that is solid. I thought that was solid personally. Now I don't watch a lot of horror movies, but I thought that whole premise and the setup and all of that, I thought it worked.
Yeah, I have a hang up there because I thought this is an interesting premise, that there is a serial killer on the loose, and you know, Frankie discovers, you know, the personal effects of probably one for each child that has gone missing in the floor vent, and then happens to find a class ring that the killer has left there or dropped there, and just so happens to be coming back that particular night. Like that's where I struggled with what was happening.
Now, Mike, they tried to explain that by they were switching out the furnace and someone was likely going to find the ring.
But why would he keep his class? Why would he keep his class ring there?
Well,
and I do believe it was. I do believe it was a Jostens class ring. It looks like a heritage ring, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh my goodness! My,
yeah.
So that was the thing, though. So when he saw like the ghost murder happen in the cloakroom, there was a ping when it kind of like fell off and it pinged into the thing. So that's how he knew it was there at first. And then when the guy was looking for it and then left, like later that night, like that was definitely coincidental. But there was a moment in the struggle that he noticed something hit the vent and fall down.
You know, I missed that.
I did catch that.
But I mean, to be fair, the girl getting murdered, it wasn't like 2 days before. So I mean, Mike's point, you're valid, because
it was like 10 years. Yeah.
It's like, why would he wait so long?
Yeah. Whoa. It was kind of stitched together. And I'm not trying to defend it. I'm just being like, these are the things that the writer put in to try to.
For me, that That was the weakest part of the plot right there.
And I will say, if that school had not had their furnace vents cleaned in 10 years, all those kids are going to have massive allergy problems for the rest of their lives.
That's,
Why do
fund
all
your
these
public
kids have?
schools,
Why
people.
do all
No,
these kids have black lung disease? Like, hmm.
gonna
Well,
get a new furnace.
They didn't have that problem at the Catholic Church.
They just didn't clean them. No.
Or they just had radiator heat and you just burn yourself every time you get too close to it.
That's what we had. I mean, radiator heat.
well, along with all of these connections to Frank LaLoggia's past, a decent part of the movie deals with the fact that race riots, racial tensions were extremely high in 1962. The janitor's arrested and put on trial despite no real actual evidence that he had anything to do with anything. Somehow he ended up on trial. African Americans are forced to sit in the back of the church on Sundays. So I wanted to ask, what did you think of the way the racial topics were handled in the movie? Do you think it was done well? Not enough? Any thoughts?
I thought it was balanced. Like it wasn't so heavy-handed that it really detracted too much from the main plot. But it was accurate for the time. That this did feel like something that probably happened to a lot of black men, and just because they happen to be in a certain place at the wrong time, and that was all the means that they needed. There's your evidence. So I think it was handled well. I think that they handled it in the proper way in terms of like, hey, this is pretty messed up, and acknowledging like the Frankie's father mentioning, they just want to pin it on him, and there's no reason I believe that he would ever hurt my son or anyone else, and there's no evidence, and so honestly, I had to pause the movie because then I had a good discussion about it with my daughter, and so again, a movie that can start any sort of discussion, they're doing something right, in my opinion.
That's a good point.
I'll jump on that. I think they started it like approaching it well. I will say it was like I think they kind of like threw it in there, and then they just kind of forgot about it for a bit because the resolution, like they never showed any of it like being discussed in court. Now, granted, the film was already almost 2 hours. If they would have covered this more, the film probably would have been close to like 2.5 to 2 hours and 45 minutes. But I will say, I think they covered the beginning part of it well to kind of explain like you said, the time period. I mean, even the stuff after when, spoiler alert, when he gets shot and killed in the car after like he's released. But like, I think they just missed out all of the stuff in the middle. I mean, you could have even had an opportunity to give some sort of level of grace to that community, like that they just didn't straight up convict him, right? That they actually determined like, oh, there's nothing to tell us that he actually did this other than falling asleep drunk in the furnace room. But so I will say that was probably the one thing I didn't like about it is they just could have like actually covered it a little bit better. The middle parts.
Yeah. I think too, like, I think you could have left it how it was in there if you would have like, so like the disjointedness I got from it, because like it was like an add-on. It didn't feel like it was what he wanted. It wasn't the main point of the story, but he wanted to make this subplot thing happen. It's like B storyline happen, but like he also had like, and I'm guessing this is like one of those situations that maybe was based off of true events or how someone like handled stuff or whatever, but his dad was always very like, like he was like trying to fight for the janitor and his family, and like was way into like, I don't believe that he's the guy who did it, but like no other character seemed to have that. And then when they did release him on like insufficient evidence, it was kind of like how like everyone else seemed that they were just perfectly fine with convicting this guy except for Frank's dad, who, his son was potentially, in the way that the town was viewing it, a victim of the janitor. But like, I wanted more of like how, like, why was Frank's dad the one who wasn't, that like, what's his backstory of like how he was not affected by the same racism as the rest of the town. And then like I don't think we got that. And then I wanted more like, was it him? Like I kind of in my brain thought like, was it him who got, did he go in and like testify of like, there's insufficient evidence? Like, you know what I mean? Like the way he was like the one fighting for it. So it was like, I feel like there was more to it, and you could have developed Frank's dad as a character in that more. And like kind of explained why he was so adamant to like, exonerate this guy.
They don't make any mention of it in the film, but Italians, when they were first immigrating to the U.S., there was a lot of racism directed towards them. So in my head, I was just thinking, he probably heard stories from his parents or grandparents about how they were treated, and maybe has a certain respect or empathy towards other cultures, and could see through that, they just want to convict someone, which happens today. Like we have instances where they, meaning the police departments, are incentivized to close a case as quickly as possible, so that the public sees them as heroes and to their benefit, to keep them around and funded. And so this is what that felt like, because the one sheriff kept coming back around, and he was like, he's black, it's easy to pin it on him. And yeah, again, during the 60s, and even today, there's going to be instances of that in our society, unfortunately. And I do think that they could have handled it better, like Rob said, because they bring up this subplot. They kind of allude to the times that we're in. It disappears, and I was heartbroken when they actually killed the janitor, Harold Williams, because I think they could have handled it a little bit differently, but it also played into the idea of someone who has lost a loved one at the hands of a murder or something else. They want to have that face, that person that they can blame. And so even though he wasn't the guy, and there's no evidence that's him, someone else, like the mother, who had like mentioned in church that she had lost her son, I think like Richie was his name. She had closure in her mind because they caught him. They caught the guy. They say they have him. And so when they released him, she's just consumed that, no, this can't be happening. It has to be him. There's no one else. Can't possibly be anyone else. And is just homicidal herself at that point. Which I think there's a lot going on there.
For sure.
I think the other piece where I think the film as a story, with getting to who was the killer in the first place, would have been something they could have like kind of explored at the same time, when they could have been in court scenes. Like there could have been things that came up that would have exposed Phil as being the killer.
Yeah. See, and I would have,
And they could have kind of covered both of those things. They could have covered that aspect of it, of the racial tensions and how the community handled it. I mean, good or bad or indifferent at that, especially those times. But then also like to lay the groundwork of like, wait, he isn't the killer because we just realized that Phil is the killer. I mean, granted, the way they kind of exposed it was kind of cool in its own way, but I think it could have brought both of those pieces of the story together all at the same time and allowed those two things to kind of be visible and kind of more be explored and exposed all at the same time.
Yeah.
Definitely, I think a missed opportunity.
And what I would have liked is maybe you do have like a few little, not, you don't even have to show the courtroom stuff. You could just have like Frankie's dad being like, I got to go in today. I have to testify on this and that. And just like leave it at that. So you know that, okay, the court case, that's still happening. That's going on. I would have preferred if it ended more on a lighter note than the dark turn it had, where, you know, I mean, it could have been as simple as they discover Phil, the father's friend, is the murderer, and now they got the whole end of the movie, where, you know, Frankie's saved, the mother and daughter reunited, ghosts, and they could cut to a little follow up of, you know, Harold being exonerated from the crimes and released at that point, and everyone in the town is moving on with their life. But they chose to go to that really dark place, which honestly, anything in this movie, that was the part where it's like, oh, this is why it's PG-13, was that moment.
Yeah. I will say too, like, because as I was watching the movie from the beginning, it takes place in 1962. I started making a list down my page here, and I came up with, we got like Stand By Me, The Big Chill, Dirty Dancing, Back to the Future. What's it? Peggy Sue Got Married. These are all boomer nostalgia films for the 60s that came out in the 80s. Like that was like a big thing in the 80s, like the 60s resurgence, because the baby boomers were now looking back at their childhood. But like as I went through that list, none of those movies, and maybe you guys can think of some more, but like none of them, those like big 60s like turn back films, they don't really deal with the civil rights issues. And this one does. You know what I mean? So it's like, that is something. Like any of those are very like, you know, white upper middle class looks at the 50s and 60s.
And that might be the reason right there why, if Frank, the director, writer of the film, was adamant about inclusion of civil rights issues within the film, I could see a lot of studios wanting to steer clear.
I could think of one, Eric.
I'm glad. I wanted to ask if you guys could come up with more.
I thought of one from Back to the Future. So you remember in Back to the Future, the mayor is Goldie Wilson.
Indeed.
And when he goes back to the 50s, Goldie Wilson is the busboy janitor at the restaurant and diner. And he has like the big conversation with the racist diner owner or whatever his name. I don't remember what his name was. Unimportant, but
he's going to be
Goldie Wilson. It was funny when you said that. You mentioned Back to the Future. I'm like, wait a second.
But it's still just like it's still like a gag. Like it, because we know it's like that like ironic foreshadowing gag that they do, which is kind of cool, but it's like a blip in the over, like none of the other like boomer nostalgia 80s films that I could think of really hit it this way. But you know, so that's impressive for this one. Then I'll give it that, you know.
Yeah, I do want to say one thing going back to Eric, when you were saying, you know, about it being part of his past that he included. He does say that when he was a kid, he remembers a race riot going on just down the street from their house. So that is part of it for sure. Um, but yeah, it does seem a little bit like, could we have had more? But like Rob said earlier, then we're talking about a really long movie. So
True.
it's a little tricky there.
Yeah, I mean,
Oh,
They were
shit.
already over budget, so
yeah.
imagine the budget if they went from 2 hours to 3 hours.
I think that this is something like there's a lot of ideas that are going on here, a lot of good ideas, and it would benefit from. I don't know if we're going to discuss it or not, but it would benefit from a remake, and it would benefit from being a short run mini series where maybe you have 5 episodes, each one about 45 minutes to an hour, and really explore these narratives and these characters more. I'd like to see it. I'd watch it.
And I mean, Willem Dafoe could play Phil. Just gonna
No,
say
he
it.
would play the nun that turns around.
Once again, we're going to cast him in every role. No.
Yes.
I mean, it would be fun to see Willem Dafoe singing "Have You Ever Seen a Dream Walking?" That would be fun.
That would be great.
So before we go on to the scoring part of the night, I want to bring up the issue of genre, because technically my job this month was to pick an October Halloween pick. It wasn't to pick horror. But officially, this is cited and categorized as a horror. Is it a horror movie? Is it not?
I will say I'll make this. I'll make my first call. I'll say no. I'll say it's more of a sci-fi drama than a horror film. You could like the ghost part of it. Is it sci-fi? And then
supernatural. That's the word you're
supernatural. Maybe that's a good way. That's a better way. Supernatural drama with the reuniting of the ghost child parent, and then the drama part. I mean, the real life stuff of the janitor being arrested, and then his dad's friend is the one who almost killed him and killed all these other kids. I would definitely not call it a horror movie. It was spooky, supernaturally, but I don't know if I'd call it a horror film.
Okay, that's one vote for no.
Yeah, I would call it a horror movie. But so like here's where I would place it, because like with the campy gaggy intro, because there was a lot of gags in the intro, and it got goofy like that. I mean, I bring up like Evil Dead did horror with humor, but like this didn't feel like that. The campy gags and maybe that framing scene tend to lead me to like, this is like kids' first horror kind of thing. So it's still a horror movie, but it's that like, it's one of those ones that you could get your toes wet with. It reminded me a lot of the Disney horror movies, if you'll call them horror movies, like the Watcher in the Woods and Something Wicked This Way Comes. Like in the early 80s, they took their like Disney family friendly horror kind of look. It could be debatable how family friendly you think, but they definitely had kind of like a Disney twinkle to them in those ways, and it kind of had that same kind of vibe. Like Something Wicked This Way Comes is one that I actually like because I love Ray Bradbury. I would still call it horror, and it has that same like the kids are your main characters and it's kind of seen through their eyes, and it kind of has that like child seeing the supernatural, we'll say, and then how they deal with it, how it like matures or ages them, and all that kind of stuff, like a coming of age film mixed in with some horror. So I think I would still call it horror. There were some spots that straight up like creeped me out. You had the recluse lady, the lady in white, and the child who the recluse lady ended up being, spoiler alert, related to the lady in white and the child, Melissa Ann. What was their last name? There's
Montgomery?
Ann Montgomery and Melissa Ann Montgomery, and then the lady in the house, the piano teacher, who was like also kind of in the mix with that also. So you like see her sometimes. It's like, is she the lady? No, she's just the old lady. But anyways, you had like those ghosts, but the ghosts were actually more benevolent, and you had then the murderer who was not. So the murderer is where, like, Phil, that there was this scene that like I got the David Lynch chills, I'll call it. It was when Frankie's in the driver's seat of like the car after the archery session they had, and he kind of figures out that Phil is the murderer, and he is locking him out of the car. And then Phil had this like rage moment that like goes on, and it was just like super unsettling in a way that it gave me like Frank Booth vibes from Blue Velvet, like of how it just like he just like kind of like pulses with rage like a second longer than it made me comfortable. And I was just like, you know what I mean, like that got me like there were a couple of like jump scary kind of things that got me too, because like I said, I don't do horror. So there was enough for me to get scared by. It was horror. It was just lighter horror.
Okay. So that's one yes, one no. Mike?
All right, I'm the tiebreaker for the 3, and then we'll see what Andrew does.
And Mike's probably seen the most.
I am going to lean towards horror, but only because it's more of a traditional horror in terms of the horrible things that people can do to one another. Like the true monster is ourselves, really. Don't shake your head at me.
Hey, I'm nodding, so it cancels out. No.
So for me, it's more of a traditional type horror. It's not a hack 'em, slash 'em modern horror. It's more about, again, you have some supernatural elements that are trying to not only find closure, but to try to solve a murder mystery of a serial killer. And then on top of that, you have the racial issues that are addressed, and there's murder. Again, horrible things that are being carried out by humans against one another. And for that reason, I would put it in the genre of horror.
All right. Well, I'm sorry, Rob, but I'm going to side with them. And yes, it is horror. Going along off of what Eric said, is a term that a lot of people like to use, is they say gateway horror. So like you were saying, dipping your toes in, getting like showing a kid, hey, here's what horror can be like. And like I said, Hocus Pocus is kind of like that, more of the fun side of horror for that, though. Whereas this is definitely a more serious version, where it's in a sense almost more of a horror about having to face the actual real world and all of the horrors that we see, like racism, murder, lying, deceit, all of that. So it's like you have this supernatural element, but then what it's really doing is saying, well, look at all of the horror and the horrible things in the world.
Nope.
That's my take. Though I will say, Rob, I fully understand, because part of the reason I came up with putting that question in here was, is it a horror? Because when you think of horror, usually
I like it.
It's not.
It's a good trigger for conversation. I like it.
Yeah, and there's a big argument about that. If you look up this movie, like, is this really horror? And people saying, well, maybe, maybe not. Frank LaLoggia himself says that he thinks of it more as just a thriller. But for me, that's kind of split right there.
The way you would switch this switch my definition of this being a horror would be, you would have to remove the racial issues, remove that from the movie, and then you would need to remove the Phil being a serial killer, and maybe it was like a one-time accident that happened that involved him, and he had never been able to, like a hit and run, like he never had the courage to actually, confess to what had happened and what he did. Then we're more into that crime thriller supernatural, I think.
Yeah.
But that's not what they wrote.
Yeah.
And I just have to say, the actor Jared Rushton, I cannot stand him in any movie I've ever seen him in. He's the bully in this one. He's also the friend in the movie Big. Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. Too. So
the kid, Frankie.
Yeah,
Frankie. I can't remember the actor's name. Cold darn it.
Lucas Haas.
Lucas Haas, yes. Frankie, Lucas Haas is Mike, I know I recommended it to you and you've enjoyed it.
Yes.
Is in The Righteous Gemstones.
And Mars Attacks.
Is he in Mars Attacks too? I didn't.
Yeah.
Who is he in Mars Attacks?
He's like the guy in the restaurant. He's like, oh, so the world's really gonna end, huh? And but he was like a main character in there.
Gotcha.
He's had a really long film career. Right?
Yeah, he's popped up in a lot of things.
He looks the same.
That's why I was like, he's so familiar, and I had to go down his. And when I saw it was Gemstones, I was like, we just watched that. He was like one of the cousins, and I was like, this, yeah, okay, he's still the same guy.
Yeah, no, that happened to me. I was watching it, and I was like, man, that guy looks familiar. And then I looked at him up, and then I saw Mars Attacks. I'm like, oh yeah. And then I saw Lady in White. I was like, what?
That's awesome.
So speaking of like characters and previous roles or later roles, it was nagging me for the first like 40 minutes of the film. I'm like, I can't pinpoint where the father was from. And there was, I can't remember what scene it was. I'm like, he's Mo Green from The Godfather.
Yeah.
And I was like, I just wanted to hear him say, like, I made my bones when you were going out with cheerleaders. I was just waiting for that scene to occur. Obviously never did. But I was like, his voice is so, like, very, like, distinct.
Yeah.
I was like, where is he from? I didn't remember what it was, but all of a sudden it, like, popped in my head that it was from The Godfather. But it's crazy because his character is so different. But again, I had to bring it up because Mike, you brought it up about some of the other
very different
other roles. Very different.
Mm-hmm.
So now it's time to see in numbers, quantify how this movie stacks up to start us out for our holiday theming here. So Rob, you're the first name on the list here in this random list naming. So you got to tell us what you think.
All right. So for rarity, I'd never heard of this film. I'd never seen this film. Obviously, some characters and actors in other films and such, but I never heard of this. So I'm going to give it a 5. For theme, despite our conversation of horror, not horror, whatever, not a horror film, whatever you guys want to say, whatever. But it's definitely in theme. It's Halloween. I mean, it's set on one of the beginning of the film is on Halloween itself. So I give it a 5. Perfect. Production value. I know we've had I'll be honest with you, kind of bounced back and forth because I definitely did enjoy the detail that they put into a lot of the scenes, but I will say some of the forest, and I won't call it the thicket, I'll call it the forest.
The thicket.
That and the blue screen stuff, it definitely dragged it down a little bit. I'd give it a 3 for production value. But for enjoyment, I will say See, I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt where I didn't in the other one. I'll give it a 4. I enjoyed it. It was a good film.
It's a solid start. I'll take it.
Strong start. All right. So,
All right, Mike. Yep.
Rarity. I was not familiar with it. My wife wasn't familiar with it. It had a couple well-known actors and actresses in it, but again, this isn't anything that they're known for. And I think the kind of whole backstory that you provided in terms of how they got their sourcing for cash flow, it's definitely unique. And it's definitely an instance where he had the drive and motivation. He was going to make this movie no matter what. And I think that's pretty rare to find. So I'm going to give it a 5. Theme, I'm gonna dock you a little bit because half of the movie takes place during Halloween, and then we move into Christmas. So I'm just gonna dock you 1 point though. So 4. Production value, again, with the budget that they had, it was impressive. But I wish they had just a little bit more. You could have cleaned up some of those edges and just made things a little bit more seamless. I'm going to have to go 3. And enjoyment, I was going to give it a 4, but, I got to watch this with my daughter. She enjoyed it. We had good conversation because of it. And so I'm going to give you an extra point there.
Well, there you go. That would make it the same as Rob's.
17.
Just in a different order. All right. Mine is going to be a little different. First off, yeah, any movie made with penny stocks as the funding, that's pretty darn rare. So in that way that it's a like self-funded independent film, like it was pretty impressive for how it came together with what it did with that, and then of course you never quite heard of it because of that. So that was kind of interesting of funding, So Rarity, I'm giving it a 5. I already typed it in there so you could see that. Theme, I'm going to be more like Rob and give it that 5 also because let's just say in the past, I have picked movies that don't necessarily only take place on the day that they're supposed to represent, even though technically he was picking for October, not just Halloween. Because it's there's other holidays in October. We could have watched something for Indigenous Peoples Day, which is early on in the month of October. But anyways, I know that I have January, and January is kind of a weird month for holidays. So I'm going to be nice about the theme, so that maybe other people might be nice about the theme later.
He's got a strategy.
Watch out, Mr. November, given that 4 is all I got to say. Anyways, I'm playing the long game
movie?
here. Right? That is a movie. You could technically pick that. I don't know if it would work. But anyways, production value, I'm right on the line there too with the 3. There were things, like I said, special effects wise, there were things that I thought worked well. There were things that were overdone, and I wish they would have been a little more clever, like with thinking outside the box, working within the giving yourself constraints so that you get creative. I would have loved to see a little bit more kind of stuff like that. Some of the things you guys described, I would have loved it, would have made it better. Enjoyment, it creeped me out. I'm not going to watch it again. It was fine. This is not my movie. It's not for me. Like those other creepy ones, like the Disney ones I described, like The Watcher in the Woods and Something Wicked This Way Comes, like those ones at least have the built-in, like they are Disney. So I'm like, well, it's part of my Disney loving culture. But like this one didn't have that connection for me, so I got to give it a 2 as far as my enjoyment went. That's where I'm at. So that's at a 15. Scary stuff, I just don't want to. But it was fine. It was okay. All right. So 49. Not bad. That's actually not bad at all.
It's pretty
That's
good.
not bad at all. Let me type 49 in the main one, and then let's go take a look at where's the button I click to go to the next slide? That's in a different tab. Beep, 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 beep. Edit this out later. That's the wrong tab too. Or is it? Wait. You could see me do it in the unprofessional way. So there you go. There, the bar went away. Haha. There we are. So the lady in white gets 49 points. And Mike, I don't know. So behind the scenes information, sometimes usually at this point, when we tell the person to tell us what they're picking the next month, we kind of already know. But I don't know if we know at all what Mike is picking for November, do we? He's typing it in one letter at a time. Krisha? Is that how I say that?
I think so. We'll find out when we watch the movie.
Hey, it's one of those.
Krisha 2015. It's a movie that it's about an hour and a half, a little less than that even. And it takes place over Thanksgiving, and it deals with the main character, Krisha, who is a recovering addict. And she's trying to rejoin her family essentially at Thanksgiving, and kind of how she handles that ordeal. So I think it'll be interesting. Budget for this was like $30,000. So we'll see how it is. And from what I can tell, it looks like it's streaming on Tubi and a couple other places. They also have it available for rent at most streaming services. So,
and of course, check your local public library to see if they have a copy. Who knows? They might. 2015, they might not. But yeah, check it out. Look for Krisha from 2015, and then catch us with a big extra helping of turkey on the next Rare Cuts Media Society.
Happy Halloween.